Welcome everyone to Metaverse One. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining from, and welcome to my session on digital accessibility in hybrid and remote workplaces. An introduction about myself. My name is Onyema Debuko. I'm an MVP in M365, also a co-founder of M365 Dublin User Group in Dublin. Um, I'm passionate about everything that has to do with modern workplace, promoting digital transformation for organization in the hybrid um, workplace, which we also know as the new normal. I work in Avanade within the modern workplace practice. You could also connect with me on LinkedIn, view my blog as well, or reach out to me via the QR code on the screen. Now, before I dive into my session, I would like to paint a scenario to bring home how accessibility is really paramount or key in the digital workspace. I'm looking at this picture on the screen. This is a colleague trying to send an email to team members, and we could see that there are some font changes, different font colors. It could be difficult for someone to read. It could be challenging for someone to assimilate the information. Now, on the right-hand side, you could see the same email, and there are spaces in between to help the reader to digest the email as well. And this is straightforward and easier to assimilate. Now, having painted the scenario, let's introduce the topic. Before I dive into accessibility, I would also like us to know that disability is not a personal health condition, right? People think that when we mention disability, it's a personal health condition assigned or ascribed to someone. But I'm here to tell you that disability is not a personal health condition. Rather, disability is a mismatched human interaction. And the reason why I said this is because there are a couple of various disability that applies to each and every one of our lives on a day-to-day activities. We have various disabilities, could be temporary disability, which could happen to most of us trying to resolve family emergency. And when we are trying to resolve family emergency, probably we have our work accounts on our mobile gadgets. We decide to turn them off because we don't want to be distracted. We want to focus on family. Family is key. We also have the permanent disability, and this could be as a result of being anxious about things, people who are struggling with anxiety. At the point where notifications could trigger that, and probably you could also turn that off. We also have situational disability. I'm also within this category. Sometimes when you're working and you're heightened with stress, you're swamped up with a lot of activities. At some point, it could be very overwhelming, and you might decide to take a breather or to give some space from work. And this really in relation to this, I usually use Viva Insight, because with Viva Insight, kind of a bit digressing away from this topic, it helps me, reminds me how am I feeling per day. And over time, when I look at the graph, I need to tell myself, you need to take a break. So we might find ourselves in any of this disability position, but that doesn't mean that is a personal condition. Like I said, is a mismatched human interaction. Now, how can we incorporate accessibility into this? Microsoft has done its best and keeps working on this to help individuals promote accessibility. And what is accessibility? We could say accessibility is creating a better experience for everyone, including ourselves. Or we could also say that it provides people the opportunity to use technology in the ways that work for them. I could be using a particular technology of Microsoft, for example, Teams. The way I utilize my Teams will be different from the way someone else will utilize their Teams. But irrespective of how we want to utilize a Microsoft product or technology, Microsoft has created an opportunity that we have to imbibe accessibility into it to make it better for ourselves and for colleagues and people we're working with. Now, before I dive into accessibility, I want us to know as well that this is a day-to-day activity. We have to make it part of our lives to help us. There are a lot of products and technology at this current time on accessibility. We have the likes of Windows, the M365, we have Teams, we have adaptive features, and we also have Visual Code and Xbox. For this particular session, I will be focusing on Windows, which could be either Windows 10 or Windows 11, or I'll also be focusing on M365 applications. We're going to be looking at Outlook, how accessibility plays a role in Word documents, PowerPoints, and Microsoft Teams as well. Now, while we're going to be focusing on this product and technology, our aim is to combat and solve problems around individuals that have challenges with speech, vision, hearing, mobility, neurodiversity, and mental health. For example, I'm on the call and I'm wearing glasses. If for me to utilize accessibility, I have to ensure that sometimes it's better for me when I'm using a darker screen, right? I don't sometimes use a dark theme to help my visibility. So this somehow affects us indirectly or people around us on how we can embrace accessibility in the workplace. Now, a lot of us who are using Windows, either Windows 10 or 11, we do not utilize all the features on accessibility, right? But before we get into it, I would kickstart with accessibility on Microsoft Edge, which is a browser most of us use all the time. Now, when you go to your settings on Microsoft Edge and you navigate down to accessibility, right, there are a lot of features that you can enable on accessibility. The ones that stands out for me are the ones I highlighted. Ask before closing a window with multiple tabs. There might be people on this call just like me who have multiple tabs open when they're trying to solve a problem. And sometimes we might only remember that we have multiple tabs open when probably our system is slow and we find out that Microsoft Edge is consuming a lot. And the next thing you go to end task or you go to close the tab, because you have enabled this, it reminds you, do you want to close tabs? So it reminds me, oh, I have to remember that I have an important tab I opened that I'm going to look back probably in a few days' time. So it makes me to take my time to go through the tabs before closing the entire window that has multiple tabs. You also have the show downloads menu that has the download start as well. A couple of us enable this comes by default, but you can also disable it, but it's better to have it turned on. Accessibility on Windows works best with notification because it's like a synergy between the Windows notification and accessibility, because this is like reminding you or prompting you for every activity that you need to do. So we have the notifications, we also have the do not disturb, and we also have the focus time. So this focus time is a bit similar to what we have in Viva Insights as well, where it reminds you to focus on a particular time, and once you're done, it um, pats you on the back, great job, and tells you to take break as well. Now, having dealt with accessibility on Windows, focusing on Edge, we will be looking at accessibilities on our own laptops. So if you scroll down at the bottom part of your laptop, where you have the internet, where you're connected, and the battery life, there you see accessibility. You could see that we have the magnifier, the color filters, the narrator, the live captions, and the like. And when you click on more accessibility settings, this brings you to the various settings that we have available on accessibility, ranging from the text size to the visual effects to the pointer to the speech and the likes. Now, these are really important because, like I made mention, for me on my system, I turn everything to dark theme, right? My Word documents is on dark theme because this helps with my eyes. These are the best way for me to utilize accessibility. For some others, it could be different. But however, whatever we're working on our day-to-day activities, we should always have in mind or for focus that we have to work with colleagues to make the workplace an inclusive one. I'm going to be showing us, I have a couple of demos I record my demos to avoid technical glitches when I'm doing a presentation. So I will be showing us, going to play a video on accessibility, how we can enable them. Looking on my screen, you can see that I've changed my mouse pointer to green because sometimes I'm lost looking for the mouse pointer. You could see that there is a text size. You can increase the text size based on your vision, right? The way you want it. If you're fine with it, you can go ahead to apply. Um, if you're not okay, if you're fine with the way it is, you can leave it that and just adjust it the way that suits you. We also have the visual effects. Now, a couple of us, sometimes when we are doing scrolling through our windows, you might be looking for the scroll tab. So you can also make this obvious by enabling the scroll tab as well. Here on the mouse pointer, you can change the color of your mouse. I changed mine because sometimes when I'm using external screen, I'm looking for my mouse. Oh, where is it? But I changed it to green so that it's easier for me to capture where exactly it is. So you can decide to increase your mouse pointer or leave it at a size that is better for you. Now, moving on from the mouse pointer, we also have the text cursor. You can also use the same color of your mouse pointer for your text cursor to also remind you, oh, this is where your cursor is. These are various accessibilities that we need to also look into. We have the magnifier. The magnifier helps also to magnify the information that are on the system. You're trying to read a document and you're using a magnifier to help with your vision. You could also use the zoom level, and the good thing is that there are lots of shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts that can help you around this. We have the color filter. So with the color filters, for people who are color sensitive on certain colors, you can decide to use the grayscale or choose the color that is preferable for you, and this will help you on your day-to-day activities. We also have the contracts team. Depending on the exact team that you want to use, there are multiple of them. Maybe you always like it to be on the night mode. Based on your choice, these are the ways that Microsoft has provided accessibility for us to feel included in whatever we are doing. We also have the narrator. Now, when you turn the narrator on, it prompts you of for you to takes you through a step-by-step process on setting up your narrator. And the good thing is that your narrator works with your keyboards. For example, the language selected on my laptop is United Kingdom, right? And this works with also the voice that it brings out for me, right? And looking at the choosing the voice, when you click on choose a voice, you could see Microsoft George, various voice notes, female, male, but it's still in United Kingdom because of the language I selected. You could also create a narrator voice yourself. To do this, you have to choose a language, your preferred language or language that is provided. And that's it about narrator. One key thing that is also standing out for me on narrator as well is you looking through the braille display with narrator. Now you could see these are amazing features that are in place to help everyone. No one is excluded. Everyone is included in the digital transformation of workspaces going forward. And we also have other capabilities like audio, right? You want to ensure that you have the right audio for you during meetings and when you're watching videos. Still on watching videos, you also have the captions, right? It helps you. There are individuals that when they're watching videos, they prefer to use the captions. I use that for example, when I'm watching a movie that is not probably English, maybe I'm watching a movie from another country, I use the caption to follow through. So it could also work in that way. We also have the speech if you want to use voice access before you sign into your PC and after you sign into your PC. These are some of amazing key features on accessibilities on Windows. And the good thing also is the eye control. For people who want to use eye tracker while utilizing their Windows, they could install the eye tracker for accessibility on Windows control. Now, having talked about accessibility on Windows, we will now move over to accessibility on Teams. As we're using Microsoft Teams to have this call, there are key things that needs to be enabled while utilizing Teams. It's important to turn on your captions and transcription. For an environment that this is not turned on, it's the duty of the IT administrator to check from the Teams admin center and ensure that this is turned on, because you might be in a meeting where there are other people from English is not their first language. With the captions and transcription in their own language, it helps them understand and flow properly during meetings. Also enable meetings access to sign language interpreters and cards as well. This would probably help everyone on the call to feel included, because the purpose is to promote diversity and inclusion in meetings, in chats, in one-on-one calls with people. It's also important to turn on video filters and use PowerPoint Live. Now, the importance of using PowerPoint Live is because when you're presenting with a PowerPoint Live, there are capability available for users, which we'll be looking at in a few minutes time, where users can change the contrast of the way it appears for them without disrupting whoever that is presenting. And last but not the least is, for every diagram, for every picture you're using on your PowerPoint slide, it's important to use alt text to message images. And what does that mean? For every image you're using on your PowerPoint presentation, provide a description. And it's good because when you use the PowerPoint Live during your presentation and someone is trying to understand what's happening with the image you're using, and they hover their mouse on that image, because you've added alt text to that image, it gives them an understanding, oh, this is what this image is all about, because there's a description behind that. Now I'm going to play a video from Microsoft that was recorded by Jerry Smith, and he talked about how to make meetings more inclusive.
Sorry, is there audio on this video?
Sorry?
Is there audio supposed to be coming through? Because we're not hearing any audio.
Oh.
You might need to reshare.
Okay, let me stop sharing and share again.
The first tip is to turn your video.
Can you hear now?
Yes, that's working perfectly.
The first tip is to turn your video on when you join a meeting, if you can. This is especially helpful for colleagues that are deaf or hard of hearing who may read lips, or for anyone who could use more context for the discussion. For example, if you speak a different language because things like humor or sarcasm don't easily translate. My next big tip is to blur your background or use a background image unless you're communicating in sign language. This will keep the focus on you while removing distractions. This is especially helpful for those who read lips, as well as those with conditions like ADHD, for whom focus can be challenging. My third tip is to use PowerPoint Live when you're presenting. You can choose this when you share in a meeting, or you can now directly share to Teams from an open PowerPoint. For blind and low vision users, PowerPoint Live allows screen readers to access the content in the slides, something that is not possible through a simple screen share. It also allows everyone in the meeting to follow along at their own pace with personalized settings. For example, participants can move back and forth through the slides or opt to view slides in high contrast mode without impacting the presenter. And finally, with the power of AI, anyone in the audience can translate the slides into any one of 19 languages, again, without affecting the presenter or anyone else in the meeting. My fourth tip is to enable live captions. The Teams Live Captions feature provides auto-generated real-time captions in 28 different languages for Teams meetings and calls. Captions can help a whole range of participants follow along, from deaf and hard of hearing people to speakers of another native language, to those working in very noisy or quiet locations. The Teams closed caption text size and color can also be customized to make them easier to see. Tip number 5 is to arrange for cart captioning to be provided when appropriate. Teams allows meeting organizers and presenters to connect a human captioner to the call, to type out what is said in real time. Cart captioning is typically very precise at capturing everything in a meeting, including specialized jargon and different accents. And this type of manual captioning is also a firm requirement in many government agencies and highly regulated settings. The next tip, number 6, is to turn on recording and transcription with one click so participants can review the discussion at their own pace, during or after the call. Any Teams meeting or call can be recorded to capture audio, video, and screen sharing activity. The recording happens in the cloud and is saved to OneDrive and SharePoint so you can share it securely across your organization. The meeting recording also shows up in the meeting chat or channel conversation after the meeting. And my final tip, tip number 7, is to add alt text to the images you share in the chat window so that screen readers can describe them to those who can't see the image. This allows for a more inclusive conversation where everyone can understand the full context.
Okay, so that is it on accessibility on Microsoft Teams. So we'll be looking at accessibility on Microsoft 365. So I recorded this demo to show us how this works for me on my day-to-day activities. So I'll be starting with the Microsoft Outlook. And in using accessibility, I leverage the power of Copilot as well to help me while working on this. So I want to send an email to my team members asking them to give me a weekly update on the projects that they are working on. So I decided to leverage Copilot to help me draft the message for this particular demo. So I pick the tone and the length which I want, and I go ahead to generate. And let's wait for Copilot to generate a draft for me. So I'm fine with this based on the demo we are going to show, and I decide to keep it. So I go ahead to click on keep it, and this is good to go, but because of the demo, I would go ahead to tweak it so that we could see how accessibility plays a role in Outlook. So I'm going to go ahead to change the font to something of a low contrast. And while that is done, I would go ahead to do some changes to prompts, wrong words, wrong punctuations, and the like. So the essence of this is sometimes when we are working, we might be so busy, we're trying to send this mail before a certain time, and we might not even have time to proofread our emails, or we may not have the time to look at the words. With accessibility, it helps us to check this well to ensure that anyone reading our mails read them to understand and read them to know what we are trying to say to them as well. So before I use the accessibility, it's always good to use the editor, right? You go to the editor settings and ensure that all the autocorrect, the spelling, the grammar, and everything it's enabled. This will help you even when you're busy at work. Now, once we have confirmed that it's turned on, we use the open editor, right, to look at what we have what we're about to send to colleagues, and we could see that we have about 4 suggestions. First, there are about 3 wrong spellings and 1 clarity. So when you click on the spelling, it takes you directly to the exact words that are spelled wrongly, and it suggests to you the words that it thinks that it's the best one, right? So while you're hovering and looking at this, you who sent the mail, as you're typing the mail, or as you were reading through after Copilot has helped you draft the mail, you already know the message you're trying to pass across to team members, and this will help you to work around it. Depending if you want to go with the suggestion, because sometimes we're going to see how sometimes when the suggestion come, it might be a wrong word. You would navigate through on how best you can work around it. So for example, you remember when we clicked on writing to remind, it didn't bring any suggestion. So I decided to work on this myself. Now let me go back to the editor to get the help of the editor. Now, on the spelling, that was meant to be resolved and is suggested right. Now, that was meant to be priorities, but what I can see, the suggestions, priorities are not there. So I decided to go with parities and go ahead to change it to priorities because this is what I wanted to send across. And that's why each time you use Copilot, you would always see that it's AI generated. You have to do your job to proofread it as well. So this is already good to go. There are no corrections anymore apart from clarity. And we won't take time to dive into this because of time. Let's assume that this is good to go, right? What we're going to do next is to close out the editor page and hover to accessibility to check if our mail is in the right perspective. And when we click on accessibility, we could see that the checker tells us that there is a text that has a low contrast, right? It gives us explaining to us that it's going to be difficult for people to read. We already know what the problem is, so we just go to, because over time when you're using accessibility, you get to understand what exactly the problem is with time. We already know that it's the fonts. I go ahead to click on check again. Oh, I can see that there is a word before that hasn't been changed, right? I already know. I go back, highlight the text and make it a text, a font color that is well readable. I go back to check accessibility, click on it, check again, no issues were found. At this point in time, I am good to go. Whatever mail I want to send to colleague is now accessible, proofread. So I decide to use Copilot again to check the mail, coach the email and see if everything is fine. Copilot suggests to me tone, reader sentiment, and clarity. Because of time, we won't go over this because this is not what we are dealing with. But Copilot coaching helps you with that. So if we move over to the next one, which is Excel, let's see how we can use accessibility in our Excel document. I got a table and I messed around with the table by changing the color of the font color of what's on the table, and also there is on the column O column, I edited the word December. I decided to spell it wrongly to see how this plays out. So what I do is, for you to assess the spelling and accessibility, it's under review. I click on review. I could see that that word is not in the dictionary and it suggests the right word for me. When I click on change all, it automatically changes that and it lets me know that spelling is perfect. Everything is good to go when it comes to spelling. I move over to accessibility and it will definitely prompt me where I need to make changes. Now, the good thing about accessibility on Excel and other word application is that you tend to see the last check time. You get to see the errors, you get to see the warnings, you get to see the tips, and the last but not the least, intelligence services. Now, when you see whichever error and you click on it, it drills down to what exactly the problem is and how you can solve it. You can see here that there is a problem with the financial reports. The second one, there is issue around the column J7 to J16. We already know what the problem is, right? And we just select the whole the rows and column and we change the font color, right? When we go ahead to change the font color, remember that we had warning, which is 3. When we go ahead to change the font color, you will see that the numbers drop down. So if we go and select automatic, it does the changes immediately. When we click on recheck, we only have 1. And if you drill down, The one there is on the financial sheets, right? You can go ahead to select, or probably there is a particular word that has a low contrast in it. And let's assume we go ahead to change it back to automatic, something that is readable. We recheck again. There is still issue. So this is how you keep drilling down and keep working on that particular document till it is accessible. It has passed the accessibility check before you are now capable to send it out to colleagues. If we move on to the next one, which is Microsoft PowerPoint, I'm going to leverage Copilot here to help with the demo. I decided to ask Copilot to help me create a presentation from a file that is in my OneDrive. Copilot's, let's see what Copilot is going to do for me regarding that. I click on send. I'm waiting for Copilot to give me a response on that. Now, Copilot is going to bring outlines for me on the way Copilot wants me to go with the presentation. But for this demo, this is not what I want. I will just stop generating and ask Copilot to create a presentation from scratch. And the question will be, create a presentation on football, right? This will allow Copilot to look into my OneDrive, internal documents, and also external, to help me get a presentation on football. Now, once we have the presentation, we will now look into accessibility, how accessible this document or this PowerPoint presentation would appear to our team members. So let's wait for Copilot to work on this and get information for us. Okay, we have presentation slides on the world of football, right? Thanks to Copilot for helping us. We have to do the other work by reviewing, making sure that it aligns to what we want to present to users. So because of time, we will not go into the spelling and all that. We're just going to head straight to check accessibility. And when we click on that, we could see this time around, we have one error, we have 11 warnings, right? And when we hover our mouse to the one error, we could see that the heading is missing alt text. Remember the video that we watched and also on Teams, we could see that the alt text, it's all about not specifying on the placeholder, not specifying what the image is all about. Now, the good thing is that it takes you now, you can see the content placeholder for slide 10. It takes you exactly to the particular slide and it highlights the error where it needs you to work on. So we already know that it's the image. So we have to work on that. Moving on to the next one, which is missing checking reading order, which has 11 of them. So it selected all the slides. When we click on slide 2, it takes us to slide 2. Now, looking at this, over time when you're using accessibility, you should know that one of the reasons it's prompting is that the font is very tiny. Someone will have to squint their eyes to read through. And it doesn't make any sense. You're doing a presentation and the fonts are very tiny. People have to squint their eyes. What it does, it makes people to lose interest in your presentation. So almost all the slides that we have here has tiny letterings. People have to squint their eyes. It's not readable for the user. Now we are going to move over to Microsoft Word. I really enjoy using accessibility on Microsoft Word because it's a game changer each time I'm working on a document. So I got this document online, and what we're going to do is, first of all, let's go to editor. Now you could see that the editor score here is 68%, sorry, and we have about 13 wrong spellings. Now, once we click on the spelling, it takes us to the word, and the word here is cipher guide. It's suggesting I put a space in between, but I don't want to put a space in between because that's the way I want the word to appear. The next is the grammar. We could see the acronym and there is a space between the acronym and the comma. which the right one is the way it's suggested for us. So we can go ahead to select that. And we also have the conciseness, and the conciseness is the way the sentence appeared. So it will give us better way to arrange that. Now, when we go to check accessibility, voila, the Word documents, there are no accessibility issues. And you could see that it stated there that people with disabilities should not have difficulty reading your content, which is the key thing for accessibility. You should, while working with team members, even for yourself, you have to make whatever documents, your email, your applications, to be accessible, to promote inclusion, to promote togetherness, make people feel welcome, make people not to feel left behind as they are working in the organization. Now, having said that, I want to, as I'm ending my session, I would like to take us back to the previous session, previous slide I had, which is one thing I want us to leave with from this call is disability is not a personal human condition, but it's a mismatched, disability is a mismatched, sorry, I think I've forgotten the word. It's a mismatched human interaction, sorry. And accessibility is really key to help. Accessibility is important because it's important on our Windows, it's important on our M365 application, on Teams, and every application that we have to use, because when we use accessibility, it helps us to promote, make life better for anyone who is having issues with speech, vision, hearing, mobility, neurodiversity, and mental health. I will indulge everyone on the call after this call. Take time, ensure that going forward, you're using accessibility in everything that you are working on a day-to-day activities. Thank you for listening in my session, and take time to rate the session and attend other sessions as well. And do not forget to wait back to watch or to join the keynote session in the evening. Thank you, everyone. If there are any questions, please let me know or pop in the chat.